Hello, this is Angela with Permaculture. Beautiful, beautiful March day, and we are outside doing all kinds of yard work today. So I am making a short series of 3 videos talking about what's going on in the garden this time of year and answering some of your questions. Now, my last video was about my bees, which you can see here, my 2 hives. And this video I want to focus on my poultry. So we have a 3 paddock rotational system. You can see 1 paddock here, 1 paddock here, and 1 paddock here behind me. It forms a U, the system of paddocks forms a U around the perimeter of our garden. It also just so happens, I'm going to rotate back around so the sun's not in my face. It also just so happens that that U-shaped area is where we have what is called a sun trap orchard. So by putting all of the trees around the perimeter of the property, we are making sure that we don't block the annual veggie garden here from the necessary sunlight that it needs to do well. So it made sense to have our poultry pastured in our orchard where they could clean up fallen fruit and where they could have shade and protection from predators and feel safe, because poultry are jungle fowl. Well, chickens are anyway. And they don't actually like to be in really open areas. They like to feel that they can hunker down under trees and shrubs. So it's worked really well. But you know, we have a lot of poultry, less than we did last year because we are not doing turkeys this year. As fun as that experiment was, I don't think we will do that again unless we have suddenly access to a lot more land. We have a lot of birds. And so we do kind of a mob grazing mentality where they don't have access to everything all at once, or they would really wreak a lot of havoc. And what we do is we keep them in 1 or 2 of the paddocks at a time in order to concentrate their disturbance. That way we can leverage their tendency to scratch and peck for our benefit. And let me show you what that looks like a little bit more here, because today is the day that we closed off one of the runs and opened up another one. And I want to compare those for you and answer those questions that y'all had about, like, how do you know when to move them from one area to another? So for the entire winter, we allowed the birds to be in the side of my garden where my golden raspberries and my sea buckthorn and grapes and things like that are. And they did a wonderful job of working through all of the wood chips in there. Chickens have this wonderful scratching ability which helps mechanically break down wood chips faster. So that is something to be aware of. If you have poultry and you have mulch, they will turn your mulch into soil very quickly, and that may be an asset or it may be a detriment depending on where you have them. So they're scratching, they're turning over everything, they're stripping that area of slugs, slug eggs, snails, weed seeds. They're cleaning up any fallen fruit in that part of the garden. But what happens is, because their behavior is concentrated in that area, if they're there for too long, they tip from being a benefit into being a pressure that damages the diversity of that area. They can start to damage my plants. And I find that they can just be too aggressive in their behavior. And so once an area is really stripped clean of weeds, once I see that the wood chips are really breaking down, that signals to me, okay, it's really time to move them on to another area. They have done all of the good work here and that area needs to rest. So the last few days I've noticed, you know, this raspberry run area, I think it's done. I think it's ready. I think it's time for it to get to chill out for the next several months. You can see here what the raspberry run area looks like after months of chicken and duck pressure. They have scratched the fresh load of wood chips that I put in and really reduced it to this wonderful fluffy material that is mechanically broken down and turning rapidly into bioavailable soil for the good microbes and fungi that are here in this part of the garden. Now, this is what it looks like when there is too much poultry pressure. This is a base of a Juneberry plant, and you can see the chickens really love to scratch way down at the base, and they start to expose the roots and damage the plants. So it's time for them to go. Don't worry, this area will get a fresh layer of protective wood chip mulch this week, right as all of the herbaceous perennials begin waking up. And this area over here, I noticed there were some weeds germinating. There were some snails that were reproducing in this part of the garden. I don't usually have snails, but I had to move some rocks and noticed that there were little clusters of snails. And I thought, okay, it's time to put them in here.
In case y'all are wondering, no, my birds and my bees don't have any trouble hanging out together at all. Now the birds have access to all of the weed seeds and grubs and slugs and slug eggs and all the good tasty things that are in this part of the garden. You'll notice there is a lot of deep wood chip mulch here that has not been worked through, still very fresh and green.
So now that they are in this part of the garden, we will let them work and scratch. This is not a perfect system. I think if I add more fencing, it might work out best for me to turn it into 5 areas instead of 3. I think that I would like to have more concentration for shorter bursts of time and have that kind of ability to let the birds have access to 2 out of 5 instead of 1 or 2 out of 3. I think that would be better in the long run, but I have to scrounge up more free fencing and build more gates in the interim, and I'm not quite there yet. So I hope that was helpful for you. I hope that you will consider whether, if you want to keep poultry in a small garden or even a really large garden, how you can harness their natural abilities to benefit your garden without having them become a nuisance, right? When we have permaculture systems, they can be really self-caring and have minimal involvement from us. But sometimes those small actions of us, the gardener, can help increase the fertility of our system, can help make sure that we are checking and balancing the forces that we are putting into the garden. We have chosen to add poultry, and so therefore I don't want to just let them loose to do their thing, knowing that I don't have enough land and knowing that they will concentrate their pressures in areas for too long and cause damage. But that if I take a little bit of initiative and I take a little bit of responsibility and I shift the poultry around, if I use my powers of observation, right? Permaculture principle, observe and interact. I observe that an area has been enjoyed a little too aggressively by the chickens. I move them on to the next area where there is a dearth of chicken behavior, and that part of the garden could benefit from that scratching and pecking. So thank you for watching today. I hope you will check out the ways you can support this channel down below, and I hope you will tune back in for my next video, because I really want to talk about what late March is like in the garden here, and what you should and shouldn't be doing, or what I should and shouldn't be doing in my garden this time of year. Thanks.
Don't forget to click like and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video. Thanks so much.